Okay, so we're recording now. Okay. So do you want to center in? We'll just do a centering in for a minute or so, just to let go of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Just do a couple of cleansing breaths. Calling ourselves forward to this moment. Letting go of the day. Bringing ourselves forward to this present experience. Giving thanks and appreciation for everything that has occurred before now. Knowing that we are all right where we should be. Things are just as they should be. Our lives are totally in flow with the continuum of life and seasons and cycles. We are expressions of the divine. And so I give thanks for this time this evening, for everyone who is here and everyone who will come back and listen at another time. Giving thanks for the energy and the power that is coming through this experience known as the Sovereign Goddess Path at this time on the planet, at this time in our lives, to open ourselves up to the experience of sovereignty, to know ourselves as divine goddesses on planet Earth, and to come together and to create community. With the intention to embrace and give birth to the sovereignty within each of us. I'm so grateful. In gratitude and love, I let it be, and I say, and so it is.
And so it is. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yummy.
So, well, let's just introduce ourselves. Isn't this beautiful? I love this beautiful flower. And
Tamika did a great job supporting us.
Yes, she has. So what we will cover tonight, who Cheryl and I are, what does it mean to be a sovereign goddess, what is the sovereign goddess path, so it's reliant, interdependent, and free, the details, and then Q&A questions for if you have things you want to ask us. And so first, let's go to who are Cheryl and Monique? So would you like to go first, Cheryl?
Sure. So I am Cheryl Bourget. I am a intuitive guide and self-evolution coach. So I work to do empowerment coaching for men and women. In the last, I'd say 5 or 6 years, I've been focusing specifically on my journey working with women. So I I work with women in bringing forth the nature of who they are naturally, to bring that into their life and to enliven that. So that's who I am. That's who I am.
Thank you for that. And I am Monique, and I work with women and men both. My coaching is through astrology and helping people really understand like their cosmic agreement to themselves and in this lifetime through their astrology and through the experience of their lives in this during this evolutionary time, like assisting us to sort of align so that we can have a more enjoyable experience here. So it doesn't have to be so difficult. And so I've been coaching for a number of years, and I've been practicing astrology for a number of years also, and just been combining them in the last couple of years. And I find it to be the two together to be a really remarkable tool to help people evolve and heal. So that's who I am.
Nice. What brought you to this path, the Sovereign Goddess path?
Well, that's an interesting question. Well, I would say that what brought me to this path has been a deep desire to experience my power, to experience like real freedom, and a loyalty to myself. And as I've discovered that within myself, it has started to connect me to other women. Like I've just felt really compelled to do this work with other women during this time on the planet. It feels like such a really ripe time for us to work together to heal patterns and become more sovereign in our lives in every way. How about you?
Yes. Yeah. The same thing. I've been on this path, and when I do the self-evolution coaching, I teach a process of mapping consciousness, assisting people with really dipping into their subconscious mind and identifying beliefs and patterns that are no longer serving them, right? That they're in these conditioned states. And so we are on a time on the planet right now where we're heightened. I've been doing this kind of work for almost 20 years. And the energy at this time on the planet is supporting this kind of work. It's naturally supporting, right? That everything is moving towards this momentum and shift. And so I'm excited because I've been working these processes and these tools for so long. And I'm excited now to really just bring the things that we've been working with for you and I on our paths for so long, and creating a community where women can step in and benefit from what we've already been doing on this path, and then grab a hold of the energy that's on the planet right now and just allow it to uplift us together in consciousness to make these changes. So I'm answering a call, right? This decision to be here with you, is spirit came through, and I'm saying yes. Yeah. I'm saying yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is a rich time to be alive on the planet, it feels like to me. Everywhere I go, people are saying the same things from all walks of life, that there's something really that they can feel happening, and so it's really exciting. Thank you for that, Cheryl.
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. You're welcome.
So what does it mean to be a sovereign goddess? So here we have: sovereignty is profound, yet an elusive concept. It is a natural state of being inherent to the feminine. Alice MacLean. Do you want to go, Cheryl, like your definition of that?
understanding what it means to be a sovereign goddess.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Sovereignty for me, right? Sovereignty is a path that I stepped on and I didn't realize I was stepping onto it. I was coming out of my life's conditions, being born into a very dysfunctional beginning with all kinds of conditions, whether it was in the world, whether it was in my own home, it was in my community, it was in my religion, it was in all my education. There was all these challenges. And I came into the world really just learning to adapt to whatever was around me and became a really good survivor. But my life's conditions put me into circumstances where I was very young. I was living on my own at 17. I was pissed off at God. And I lit a candle and I started meditating. And I started to walk this path deliberately, saying there's got to be more than this, and there's got to be a reason for this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I began seeking, right, these answers inside of me and stayed. Now I'm 57. And so now what sovereignty means to me to be a sovereign goddess, and it's not an easy path, it's a rigorous path for me. It's not always pretty,
Mm-hmm.
it's not always feeling good or puts me in the limelight in a really nice way. The path for me has meant that I've had to look at my shadows and really understand how I operate was operating in my lack of consciousness, was operating in my surviving consciousness, was playing out the victim villain, all those parts of my life. I had to decide to go in consciously and understand who I was as an energetic being, deepen my connection to that divine aspect of who I am, right? And then I trained as a shaman, I trained as an alchemist, and I learned the alchemy of who I am as an energetic being connected to the earth. And in doing that, I began to take personal responsibility for my energy vibration, for the energetics of who I am. Mm-hmm. And then becoming aware of who I am as an energy being and the power of my thinking and the responsibility I have to that, that began to define what it meant for me to become sovereign. And then I recognized that in all the areas that were most important to me, right? My physical body, my sexuality, my health, my wealth, my creativity, my just who I am as a woman to be fully expressed in this world. All of my relational things became this place where I began to take full responsibility for the experiences that I was creating, right, through my own energetic frequency. And then that's what it means for me to be sovereign, to be completely empowered in all these areas of my life by taking full responsibility for who I am as a divine being, for who I am as that source energy coming through. That's what it means for me to be sovereign. And still to this day, because I've been on this path, it's still not easy. It's still rigorous, right? It's still about me being in harmony with those broader energies and really understanding what it means to be of masculine and feminine frequency, and how that shows up in me, and then how that shows up in my world, and what does this mean? And what does it mean to have myself be an energetic being aligned with the currency of my finances, the currency of my creativity, the currency of my sexuality, the currency of my relatedness, the frequencies of those exchanges. And then the other way it allows me to be sovereign is when I'm in this state of consciousness and I'm taking full responsibility, I get to dream a new world. I get to not even break down the old, but build a world of inclusion. Build this world that's inclusive of who we are as energetic beings and who we are as energetic beings in relationship to this earth, in relationship to the galaxy. And so being sovereign has gotten really big for me. And I'm now stretching my muscles to really just envision what is this new world where we're all sovereign. And what is my role as a woman to birth this into consciousness and to support my sisters and my brothers, right? Because as I became a sovereign woman, I really began to uplift, inspire, and bring healing to the men in my life. And that is part of bringing this whole new world online. So I could continue to answer this question for you. So I'm going to pause. And I would love to hear from you. What is it for you to be in this space of sovereign?
Well, thank you for that. I really, like, you really covered it. I don't want to be redundant, honestly, and so, because what it is for me is not much different than what it is for you. And it's, just this opportunity to really take responsibility for everything that goes on in my life, as my creation. And that is a very nuanced experience of understanding, why I'm here, my purpose, the family structure that I've come from, the lessons of my life that have persisted, the things that I've sort of come to master this time around, and how challenging that is. It has been a very rigorous path, but there's so much there's so much power gained in being willing to take responsibility for everything, and the payback is the reward is extraordinarily worth it. Like, the more I take responsibility for everything happening in my life as my creations, the more I align into experiences of more love and more health and more flow, and just by deep experiences of self-love and being accountable to my internal world, like recognizing how this works, like my internal world creating my external world, and not making anyone responsible for how I'm feeling about an experience, right? But being profoundly loyal to myself. And it's, I just don't find that there's anything more rewarding. And the aspect of being source reliant is just creates this experience of trust within myself, like deeply trusting myself that as I rely upon the source that is within me and as me, that I open up into this very mystical relationship with the universe that is, that it's so full of something that only comes out of, almost fairy tales in a way, not the ones that we grew up with, but fairy tales about how profound we are as human beings, as women, when we allow ourselves to experience our connection to source first and foremost, when that becomes the relationship that's the most important. That is the primary relationship, the one that I'm having with source. And that has been the most rewarding experience ever. So this is a continued journey. But the reward is this relationship to myself and to source that is fulfilling in ways that I didn't think that anything could ever really be, honestly. It's pretty,
right.
Yeah. It's pretty profound. So that is
we move all that suffering. We move the suffering out of the way, and then, right, and we surrender. We go from suffering to surrendering. And then there's just beauty and pleasure and love and goodness and a return to innocence. And there's so much in that decision to not suffer, but surrender and
Yes.
embrace within that source. Scrumptious. Okay.
Absolutely. So thank you for that.
Thank you for sharing. Yes.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Got me all excited. And so wait. I just want to say one thing about this image.
Yes. This one or the one
Being
before?
sovereign for me. Yeah, the one before.
Yeah.
With the women.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Being sovereign for me also means that I do get to link arms with other women, right? That I'm inclusive of knowing the value of reaching out and holding the hands of all the other unique feminine expressions that are around me, right? And being in that space to offer a spotlight of support, to witness and to be witnessed, to give and to receive, right? With my sisters in a circle in this way, because as we can heal ourselves this way, we bring this to our families, to our communities, and to our world. And there is something, there's a medicine in coming together with a sister and standing shoulder to shoulder or face to face, right? And then uplifting ourselves together into this space of sovereignty within us together. It widens the circle of well-being for life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So what does it mean to be source reliant, interdependent, and free? Well, I feel like I just spoke to being source reliant, like this opportunity to recognize that my primary relationship is to my higher self. And I feel like that's something I've been cultivating since I can remember, since I was a very, very little girl. And it's taken on it's taken on many renditions. Like, it's at times it's looked like I'm a practicing Christian, or at times it's looked like I'm practicing yoga, or just some sort of, but my devotion to source is the most significant relationship I've ever had in my life. And without it, there have been times in my life when I have made it less primary, and I pay the cost for it. My intuition is not as in sync. My ability to process, to love myself is not as available. My capacity to be of service to others, to be a present mother, to hold space, everything suffers when I am not practicing my relationship to source first and foremost. So source reliant for me is like breath. It's breathing, and it takes precedent. And then it connects me to everything interdependent, right? So as I recognize the source within me, I'm able to recognize the source within those who are around me or in the world. Like I recognize that there is a connection to all of it. And that understanding that we are a web together, all connected through source, then generates a real sense of freedom. Because I recognize that I'm a part of a cycle. I'm a part of a cycle, a secular experience that is a planetary experience and a universal experience, and that experience, and that it gives me freedom because I don't have to do it. Like there is a system in place. When I was a little girl, I remember I always wonder, like, how do these women get pregnant? Like, what is happening? How is God coming down and making all of these women pregnant at the same time? I just didn't get it. Like, I remember just being so verklempt about that. Like, what is it? And I didn't realize that there was a system in place that, or a cycle, that there was a cycle in place that allowed things to unfold the way that they did. It was like God created a system to have this happen. So God didn't have to come and do it all, right? And so those systems, those cycles breed freedom. They give us an opportunity to be free, and because we don't have to do it. Like, we don't have to plug our hearts up. We don't have to think about breathing. We don't have to return, because there's cycles and things that work, systems that are working, that allow us to be free to experience the nature of who we are. And so that is what it means for me to be source reliant, interdependent, and free. How about you?
Ah, that's beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, for me, becoming source reliant was a big leap in a shift in mindset for me, because like I said earlier, I was brought up in this Catholic perspective, and I had this, like, literally, I'd write notes to God when I was a little girl. I would barter, like, keep me safe tonight and I'll do this tomorrow.
Wow.
And I leave these little notes. That's the environment. I would write notes to this being that I believed was outside of me. And I mean, literally, I would be begging. I leave the note, and then I'd do exactly what I said I'd do the next day, just hoping that, you know, I would live through the night. You know, it's that kind of a scenario. When I then was on my own at a young age, I literally was mad at God. But then it caused me to ask a lot of questions about what was going on. And so for me to make the leap from, there's this something outside of me, you know, in my background, it was like the old white man in the clouds was overseeing us and would punish us or grace us, depending on if we were good or not. And so I had taken that relationship with God and leaned it into all my other relationships, as if my safeties and securities are out this way. And so I leaned this way. But when I started to come back this way and had gotten in touch with this light, this energetic inside of me, I began then to understand that the relationship was really going this way, and I was deeply connecting to the energy of life that was with me, that I had previously thought was God sitting up in a cloud. And it changed everything for me. It became this very first secret experience I was having, you know, like getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and making sure I had this sacred time before I would go to work all day. You know, and I couldn't wait to get up in the morning. I'd have ginger tea, light my candle. And I just started to build this relationship with this energetic, that as I developed a deeper and deeper connection to it, it enlivened me in many ways, and it heightened my intuition. And then it began to bring all my natural gifts online. As I deepened in this relationship to my source, my intuition deepened, and my ability to be telepathic and healing, all those things, all these gifts, natural gifts, started to come online. And it became a very sacred experience for me. And then I very gradually brought it out into the world. So source reliant for me means that this is where I defer to first. Like you, it's a relationship that's my priority. And it's now a relationship I choose to have with the people in my life. I choose to relate to who they are in their source energy, even if they're not in touch with that. I know they've got a higher energy that's within them, and I can consciously choose to also acknowledge that, which brings me into that interdependence, right? Because I understand now that source energy that you and I are talking about it runs through all of life. It interconnects me to the earth and to all of my human brothers and sisters, to all of my wildlife. So I recognize that there's a value to me being in this relationship to source and extending that in all directions with the people on the planet with me right now, with all things on the planet with me right now, and to deliberately have a handshake in those aspects of who we are, right? Sharing, just uplifting and sharing in these exchanges. When I'm in that space, I'm in that, those people have an opportunity to be in that space with me, and it's healing. It's a beautiful place for me to be in consciously, and it is, I land in that place of being free because I have the choice over and over again to decide how I'm going to place my attention, place my awareness, shift my perspectives, decide where I'm going to have a handshake in everything I do. Am I going to have a handshake within the light of who we are, or am I going to have a handshake within the ego? And I'm free to work with those cycles that you talk about, the moon, the sun, the seasons, all of it, right? Because Source is expressing through me, and I'm an integral part, and so is all of everything else. So on our path that you and I are creating, it is our intention to create a platform for women to step into this flow that we're talking about, right? That you were saying, right? The systems, the energetic expressions that are moving through us all of the time. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you for
Thank
asking
you.
me.
Thank you. It's awesome. So, do you want to, what do you want to do next, Cheryl? Do you want to have a little, ask people to come off and have some questions, or do you want to go into?
Yeah, we can ask questions.
Okay.
That sounds good.
So if anyone has any questions that you'd like to ask about what we've just shared, or comments about how it resonates with you, you can take yourself off mute.
Hi, thank you all for this introduction. I have a few questions, and I'm not sure. I wrote little notes down, but I'm not sure how they're going to come across.
Okay, that's great. Tell me your name.
My name is Sonia.
Hi, Sonia.
Hello.
Okay.
Hi, Sonia.
Hi. So I'm pretty new to, I guess, all of this. I don't know if this has any connection to like spirituality. I've been doing my own shift from being brought up in a Christian household, and then to, I guess, moving towards spirituality and healing and learning about, my subconscious behaviors and thought patterns. So I'm not sure how I stumbled upon this, but I'm assuming that this is the universe working for me. So Monique, you mentioned, doing cosmic agreements to others or offering that through astrology or something along that line. My first question is, do you get to this place through formal training, or what? How do you get here?
How do I get here? How do I get here?
Yes, like,
yes.
Did you learn about all of this through some type of formal education, or what?
Yes, there has been some, absolutely. So, but it has been things that I've just trusted Spirit's guidance, right? So after I graduated from my BA degree in Howard University in Washington, D.C., I realized that I could not go to be a politician and I couldn't be an attorney. It just wasn't something that I was made of. So I came back to Los Angeles and got a master's degree in spiritual psychology, where I first started to study and understand human behavior and trauma and how to assist myself and others to be present to our traumatic experiences and then do the work spiritually, spiritual work along with counseling to begin to address the internal realities is what I'll say, the internal realities of fear and pain and just the trauma.
Okay.
And then once I graduated from that program and I started working with people, then I'm always doing my own work. So I'm always continuing to keep myself in spaces where I'm learning new modalities and tools, where I'm leading and for lack of a better word, I don't like to use things like on the cutting edge because that feels so patriarchal to me, but just really understanding that this, like, we're at a time now where we're evolving a lot, and there's new, ancient but new tools and wisdom coming down the pipelines for us to awaken and heal ourselves. And so yes, it has been formal. There's been formal education, and there has been what I just call like my cosmic breadcrumbs, where it's like, oh, I'm supposed to go do this now. And that's how I ended up being an astrologer. So yes, I had a master's degree, but when astrology came, I thought, oh, this is really going to help. So the two, so I've studied that on my own and combined my coaching with astrology, just by divine guidance is what I would say.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And just as a follow-up question, 2 follow-up questions. In terms of, like, I know you mentioned healing and psychology. Do you do a lot of work with people's inner children? Do you help people to heal that relationship?
Yes, absolutely. That's a primary part of the work, like really understanding how to come to the experience of the inner child and tools and resources and everything too, because that's first and foremost. Like that has been, in my experience, that was my first step to go into the places to be present to my inner child and the wounds. So yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anything else? Does anyone else have a question? Thank you very much for that, for your very thoughtful questions, by the way.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, if no one has another question right now, Cheryl, do you want to talk about what we're, the package and what we're going to be offering? And
Sure. So we're going to be offering a membership path where you can opt in to be part of our program on a monthly basis, or you can opt in and just commit to being part of it for the whole entire year. The courses are going to go off every month, and they'll be held in our member vault hub. And we will bring a subject that's in this conversation to the table. That every month we're going to come in and have a conversation around a very specific subject. Sometimes we'll bring somebody in that's an expert in that conversation that may join us in the process. And there'll be worksheets within that, and you'll always leave with a self-care practice, something that you'll need to do that month, and a focus, an exercise that you'll focus on that month so that you can begin to integrate into your consciousness, right? The information that's going to support you with leaving behind those old belief systems, thoughts, and actions, and adopting some new ways of being in relationship. During those classes, Monique and I will be part of that, and so there will be spotlight coaching available to people that are in that class with us, which is always good for the group consciousness. So you will always have a topic that we're going to focus on, action steps that you'll need to take, and then you'll learn a new spiritual tool. There'll be something that will leave you with that you'll have to practice with. And then as we go, there'll always be videos and articles that will be coming out and being hosted either in our hub or dropped into the Facebook group, which is a great segue to that. Once you join us, then you also get to opt into our private Facebook group, where we'll continue to have the conversation that we're focusing on for that month. And then you'll also continue to receive support around whatever that is. As you begin to make these changes, you're going to come up to pockets of resistance. And so it'll be important that you're able to receive the connections and the support that you need to continue to stay focused. And like you had asked about that inner child work, this will trigger some of that inner child work that needs to happen. And so Monique and I can support you in that process. And then you'll also have women in the Facebook group that will be able to do that. There's no way we can go on this journey and not turn in and do the wounded work for our inner child. Bringing ourselves back to innocence is part of this process. It's a great question that you asked. And so thank you for bringing it into our conversation, that is a foundation of our work. And then we'll always be bringing extras in. The one thing I love about Monique is she'll wake up because Spirit has dropped a bug in her ear and she just runs with it. So we will always be bringing something that we hadn't planned to bring into the conversation or into your awareness, or something for you to bring home and be with. And so if you go into our hub, there's a list of all the topics that we will be weaving into this conversation. We may touch on everything on 1 month, but there'll be a spotlight of something bigger on just one of those things. But the course will flow according to what the consciousness of the people that come to the group. And so Monique and I are going to work closely with the energy of the group and discern together the best way to bring you into the next level, to bring you into that next shift. That's one thing about the feminine energy. It doesn't have 4 shored up corners.
Right.
When we're in our feminine energy, we are really allowing ourselves to flow freely.
Right.
And so we have a program that's put together, and we've got lots of subjects that we are going to cover. But the exact way they're going to show up or when they're going to show up, Monique and I don't know that yet. So this is something that you'll learn. Part of the feminine way, it stays in the flow to the very last second because everything is informing the process. Even tonight is informing the process for us as we continue to build this platform for you.
Absolutely.
So like I said earlier, we can do a monthly or a yearly investment. The monthly investment is $77 per month, and that could just be a reoccurring payment that you would make. Or you can make the full 12-month investment, which is $724, and that's a $200 savings over the whole year. So I'm going to pause. It's a lot that I just said. So we pause and ask anybody have any questions about what I just shared. Okay. Monique, did you want to add anything to that?
No, first of all, that was beautiful. Thank you. I love the way you're able to lay things out so clearly that way. That is such a wonderful skill set. The thing that I did want to add is that this experience, this call to sovereignty for us as women at this time, we can see in our cultural experience right now the big shift that's happening to wake women up and waking us up to become ourselves, like truly. And it's almost like dumbfounding what's happening in our country, right? It's almost impossible to believe, except that we're witnessing it. And the reason we're witnessing it is because we have not taken full responsibility for ourselves. The collective feminine and the individual, and this work will help us absolutely discover the parts. I know when I started to discover the part of me that was waiting on something, I would start to wake up in the morning. I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I bust myself and I go, who are you waiting on? Like out of the blue, I snap myself out of it because I could feel me waiting for something or someone to come believing that my power is outside of me. And the work has been to align that to source, align that desire to source, and that is within me. And then I am it. It's not, I'm not waiting on Prince Charming or to be a perfect size or when I get this amount of money or when I'm here now fully. And in that, my sovereignty is available to me. And so I just feel like we're at a pivotal time in our lifetime, and this work is very supportive towards where we're going as women. So
Yes,
thank you.
That was beautiful. You say you're waiting for someone to show up, and I would say, for me, I don't need permission.
Right.
That was my big, I would wake up seeking permission from my girlfriends, from my partners, from my work, I was waiting for someone to invite me in or give me permission or whatever to be fully expressed.
Yes.
And we've been seeing it for a long time, but now it's come to a head, like you said. And so that experience that you were having about waking up and waiting on something or someone, I was like pleading for permission. Please.
Right.
Let me have pleasure. Let me be creative. Let me succeed. Let me have fun, whatever it was.
Right.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
So let's see. So if there are any other questions before we complete our time, please, you can ask them now.
Hi, it's Sonia again.
Yes, hi, Sonia. Ask everything. Thank you for asking questions.
No problem.
Yeah.
So this question is actually for Cheryl.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier when you came on, you mentioned that you do work that helps women to bring forth the nature of who they are naturally. I was wondering if you could be in a more practical way, what exactly does that mean?
Yes, thank you. So for me and the women that I work with is when I was brought up in my home and in the world as a woman at that time. I was rebelling. I was working or pushing against or trying to break the chains of what it was like to be a woman during the generations that I was growing up with. And I was told this is how I should be, right? I needed to go out and succeed, and I became very masculine and was the only woman in an all-man job, right? So I rebelled against what was being modeled for me, and I moved towards what I was told I should be. And when I came back to my own center and began to get in touch with what was true for me, what was naturally in alignment for my feminine and my masculine energy, then I started to understand that there was a lot of what I rebelled against that I really actually wanted to integrate into my life, right? And there was parts of me that really wanted to be successful, but I didn't want to do it in such a masculine way. But I wanted to bring more of my feminine part online to be successful in the world. So I had confusion about how I was supposed to be. And as I aligned within my source and as I help my clients to align back to who that they are, we do some powerful deep diving to bust some of our own myths and to align up with what really feels like a natural expression of who I am. Like, I do like to be in the kitchen. I do like to work and be an entrepreneur and create projects and bring it forward, but I have a very feminine way of doing that. I do like to spend a lot of time in nature, right? And what I learned, because I'm a grassroots kind of girl, is I'm very feminine. However, my masculine loves to lead, and I love to bring that online and find ways for me to be activated in that, and then work that through with my partners or with my business partners or my lover. So it was really just stripping away what I was rebelling against and what I was told I should become. And then coming back into the center of who I am and really being fully expressed in those expressions. Yes?
Okay, yes, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Mm. That's
Yes,
beautiful.
thank you for asking.
Great question, Sonia. Okay, well, if there are no more questions, then Cheryl, is there anything you'd like to say before we go?
I guess if you're on the fence and you're here, I invite you to opt in. Would love to be on this path with you. Yeah.
Thank you.
How about you?
So first, thank you, Tamika. She's here. Tamika is, she supports us, and we could do none of this without her. So thank you. I really appreciate your gift to this work, Tamika. And then I think I'm very clear in my own way that the world is changing a lot because I'm having these conversations. Yesterday, I was in the Uber with a man from the Congo, and he was the driver, and he was talking to me about having 2 children with autism and how challenging that is for him. And it did not miss me that I was in the car with my son who had Down syndrome, and he was dropping us off at the speech therapy place that he didn't know about. And I'm so aware that my relationship with Source is so keen right now that every encounter I have is one that's filled with magic, every single one of them. And I ended up talking to that man about his children. And then I said, can't you feel that something is going on? And he goes, yeah, the whole world is changing. This is a man, like, I just talk to everybody about it because I know everybody can feel it. And he was so aware of the shift that's happening. And he lightened up. And our conversation got light, and he wasn't heavy around his children anymore, or what the process that he was going through as a parent, because he totally had validation that we're moving through an energetic shift on the planet right now, and people are not talking to him about it often. And this work of being sovereign and being source reliant creates this incredible experience of oneness and connection that it makes my life so rich in ways that could be mundane. and I just feel so fulfilled because of it. And so I credit this type of work to that kind of experience. So
Beautiful story. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, everyone, Cheryl and I are available through email or social media, or you can reach out to us and if you have any questions, or you can go into the hub and join in to our Sovereign Goddess experience. Our first class will be on the 21st of June, a month from now. We'll present our first course, and we will have one every month for the next 12 months. And so thank you for your time this evening, and peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings.